Welcome to Plan B with Anthony Kerori. This is a show where we discuss about extraordinary solutions to major problems. We think out of the box. In fact, here, we threw the box away. Now we think freely. So if you're in a quagmire and need some innovative, extraordinary solutions, please get in touch with the email scrolling down below. Today, we have a bonus show. Why? Let me tell you. The main topic is about how to stop rivers so that we can conserve water. And the bonus show is about this housing agenda. The housing agenda needs a plan B. Jeshi tigenu, yani raia hawana furaha. But we'll come back to that. Atiam kusikia vizuri? Topic ni how to stop rivers to conserve water. Yani, how to stop rivers so that we save water. I'll explain in a moment how. But first, the background. When it rains, we have water everywhere, from the expressway. Rivers burst their bank, and generally, the country is more or less flooded. But if unfortunately the rain fails once or twice, for instance, like from the 2020, this recent rain that we just came from 2020 to 2023, livestock died, crops, they didn't grow. Many families lost their livelihood. Why? Because there was no water. Yet, a few months earlier, or a year before, there was so much water, and now we don't have any water. Hapo ukiangalia, don't you think one would say daftness is us.com? So, we need to come up with something that can work. Now, before I proceed, the other day I went to visit a friend of mine. He was farming next to a river. Most of his crops were drying. I asked him, si maji iko hapa, water is here. Si utumie. He told me ati kuna sheria, there's a law that prohibits direct usage of that water. Ati ukishikwa na kanjwa magava utafungwa. Seriously, wacheni niulize. Isn't that, with all due respect, daftness of the highest order? Labda hiyo sheria iliekwa na wazungu kitambo. Ama labda that law was enacted before the word climate and change were invented. Now we are facing climate change. That law needs to be changed. Ningekuwa bunge, if I was in parliament, I would have changed that law and also would be stopping rivers. So, how do we do this? It's very simple. Most of our rivers, Athi River, Tana River, the water goes into the Indian Ocean. Ikifika huko inatusaidia aje? Other rivers into Lake Victoria, halafu zinaenda mpaka Mediterranean Sea. Sasa hii maji ikitoka inatusaidia aje? For instance, let's take Tana River. Every year, over 5 million liters of water flow into the Indian Ocean. Hiyo maji ikifika Indian Ocean inatusaidia aje? So this is my idea. Most of these rivers have got seasonal streams or seasonal rivers that feed into them. Now, in area with high population density, for instance, Lake Juja, we have the Rereka River and Darugo River. Ordinarily, these rivers have water throughout. But when the rain fell, like the rain failed last time, they dried up. So, this is how to stop the rivers. If, for instance, let's say Darugo River, the average height, the normal height of water, after it has stopped raining, let's say it's 10 meters. Then what government should do, they should create a dike or a concrete wall at 5 meters. So that when it's raining and it's overflowing, water will continue flowing. But when the water drops to the level of 5 meters, it stops flowing. What does that mean? All the water upstream will be stopped. It will act like a dam. Therefore, the farmers upstream can be able to use that water for their plants and even for domestic purposes. So to stop rivers is simple. But as we do that, I need to add a caveat. Such water cannot be used for industrial purposes or even car wash because you don't want oil to get into that water and then the same water is used to water our crops or used domestically. Therefore, any industry that is upstream, if they are found contaminating that water, either the owners should be deported from the country or jailed for a minimum of 30 years. But that's a story for another day. For today, how to stop rivers. So to stop rivers is very simple. In any densely populated area, create a dike or a concrete wall that is half the normal flow. And this is not only where there are rivers. There are many places where we hear there are flash floods. That is, it rains somewhere else heavily, but downstream, there's a place where it didn't rain. Water comes suddenly, and people are not aware that it rained upstream, and then water carries them away, creates a lot of damage. In such areas, create a dike, create a wall, so that when water comes, instead of it flowing away, it stops there, and those people can be able to use it. But in areas like those ones, where there are no rivers, upstream, they should have a dike whereby it can be opened, so that when it starts raining, they can open that dike a bit, so that water flows, so the people downstream can see the water coming and know that more water is on its way and take the necessary precautions. Anyway, stopping rivers, it's that simple. Create a dike in densely populated agricultural areas, and that will sort out the issue of hunger and the issue of animals dying, because we'll have that water. That is done. Now, to the bonus show. Let me ask you, do you know this guy? He's the president of Kenya. I think his heart is at the right place.
As we implement the housing plan, not just to create jobs.
Lakini, apart from King Solomon, nobody else knows everything. So he has to rely on a think tank. People to help him govern, people to give him ideas. By the way, when I think about the people who are helping our president govern, I don't know why. There's this American band, I think it was called Heavy D and the Boys. It always comes to mind. But anyway, let's come back to the Kenyan situation. The people who've advised the president about the housing agenda, they had the idea, theoretically, on paper, it was right. We'll create 1.6 million jobs. Lakini, as I said, jeshi thigenu, raia hawajafurahi. That's why we have so many court cases. And let me throw a spanner into the works. Let's say this particular room I am in is the last unit being built of the 1 million houses. Na imeisha leo, it's finished today. Kazi imeisha. What will happen to the 1.6 million people tomorrow? Therefore, this housing unit does not create sustainable jobs. When the last unit ends, hizo kazi zitakwisha. You can say you build another million, but eventually there'll come a time you can't build anymore. So what happens the next day? Kazi itaisha. Those jobs are not sustainable. So you need to think of something that is more sustainable than that. 2, some of these apartments, I don't know how many floors they'll go up. Will the lift always be working? If the lift doesn't work, won't we have created, with all due respect, like a concrete slum, in the sense that the staircase will be the only way to go up and down? Hapo mtu kupigwa ngeta, wale wa kupigana ngeta, it will be Christmas holiday for them. It will be harvesting season all through. I think we can do better than that. Anyway, if you can be able to get in touch with this guy, the president, please tell him there are some people called Plan B with Anthony Kirori who know how to stop rivers, and they can be able to create a minimum of 2 million sustainable jobs. What do we mean by sustainable? It's jobs that will be done by us, by the next generation, and the other generation. That's what we call sustainable jobs. And in the process, we'll create wealth for the country, for the citizens. And as we do that, we'll increase our GDP per capita. Right now, maybe around $2,000 per year. With the right ideas, we'll be able to increase this to 3,500 to 4,000. Basically, we'll be able to double our GDP per capita. That happens, the citizens will be wealthy, the government will be rich, we'll be able to improve our quality of life, we'll be able to pay our debts freely, easily, without breaking sweat. So, Mr. President, what do we want from you? I hear there's something called high tea. And the funny thing is, when you take this high tea, there's no hangover afterwards. Mr. President, why don't we have some high tea together and brainstorm and see what can be done? But before we proceed, allow me to add, hata kama unajua the gentleman, the president. Usituite, ati kwanza utuulize, hizi ideas ni gani umpeleke. Hapana. Brokers not allowed. This is a direct conversation, one-on-one, from us to him. And then we see how that goes. Very good. Now, as I wind up, before we improve the state of our economy, before we improve our country, labda unafeel uko stressed. So, how can we help release that stress? Simple. There's this book. It's called Rainbow in the Clouds by Radhika Lee. She's the founder of Nairobi International School. This book is not only motivational. I read it. I was very, very happy and laughing as I was reading it. It's a very, very inspiring book. So if you are feeling a bit demotivated, hebu soma uone watu wamepitia shida mingi before they reached where they reach. I read this book. I recommend you do it. Now, as we wind up, first we need to stop our rivers so that we can use that water if the rains fail. And we need a plan B for the housing agenda. This plan B, we have the ideas. We need to discuss that with Mr. President. So looking forward to that. And as I mentioned, remember, rainbows in my clouds, Nairobi International School. This is a true story. Thank you very much for keeping it here. Till next time, this is Plan B with Anthony Kirori. Thank you and God bless.